And these fragmentary musical expressions, though sometimes beautiful, were disagreeable, because they were utterly unexpected and not led up to by anything. Gaiety and grief and despair and tenderness and triumph followed one another without any connection, like the emotions of a madman. And those emotions, like a madman's, sprang up quite unexpectedly. During the whole of the performance Levin felt like a deaf man watching people dancing, and was in a state of complete bewilderment when the fantasia was over, and felt a great weariness from the fruitless strain on his attention. Loud applause resounded on all sides. Everyone got up, moved about, and began talking. Anxious to throw some light on his own perplexity from the impressions of others, Levin began to walk about, looking for connoisseurs, and was glad to see a well-known musical amateur in conversation with Pestov, whom he knew. Marvelous! Pestov was saying in his mellow bass. How are you, Konstantin Dmitrovich? Particularly sculpturesque and plastic, so to say, and richly colored is that passage where you feel Cordelia's approach, where woman, _das ewig weibliche _, enters into conflict with fate. Isn't it? You mean what has Cordelia to do with it? Levin asked timidly, forgetting that the fantasia was supposed to represent King Lear. Cordelia comes in, see here, said Pestov, tapping his finger on the satiny surface of the program he held in his hand and passing it to Levin. Only then Levin recollected the title of the fantasia, and made haste to read in the Russian translation the lines from Shakespeare that were printed on the back of the program. You can't follow it without that, said Pestov, addressing Levin, as the person he had been speaking to had gone away, and he had no one to talk to. In the _inter_oct_ Levin and Pestov fell into an argument upon the merits and defects of music of the Wagner school. Levin maintained that the mistake of Wagner and all his followers lay in their trying to take music into the sphere of another art, just as poetry goes wrong when it tries to paint a face as the art of painting ought to do. And as an instance of this mistake he cited the sculptor who carved in marble certain poetic phantasms flitting round the figure of the poet on the pedestal. These phantoms were so far from being phantoms that they were positively clinging on the ladder, said Levin. The comparison pleased him, but he could not remember whether he had not used the same phrase before, and to Pestov, too, and as he said it he felt confused. Pestov maintained that art is one, and that it can attain its highest manifestations only by conjunction with all kinds of art. The second piece that was performed Levin could not hear. Pestov, who was standing beside him, was talking to him almost all the time, condemning the music for its excessive affected assumption of simplicity, and comparing it with the simplicity of the pre-Raphaelites in painting. As he went out Levin met many more acquaintances, with whom he talked of politics, of music, and of common acquaintances. Among others he met Count Bol, whom he had utterly forgotten to call upon. Well, go at once then, Madame Lvova said, when he told her, perhaps they'll not be at home, and then you can come to the meeting to fetch me. You'll find me still there. Chapter 6. Perhaps they're not at home? Said Levin, as he went into the hall of Countess Bola's house. At home, please walk in, said the porter, resolutely removing his overcoat. How annoying, thought Levin with a sigh, taking off one glove and stroking his hat. What did I come for? What have I to say to them? As he passed through the first drawing-room Levin met in the doorway Countess Bola, giving some order to a servant with a careworn and severe face. On seeing Levin she smiled, and asked him to come into the little drawing-room, where he heard voices. In this room there were sitting in armchairs the two daughters of the Countess, and a Moscow colonel, whom Levin knew. Levin went up, greeted them, and sat down beside the sofa with his hat on his knees. How is your wife? Have you been at the concert? We couldn't go. Mama had to be at the funeral service. Yes, I heard. What a sudden death, said Levin. The Countess came in, sat down on the sofa, and she too asked after his wife and inquired about the concert. Levin answered, and repeated an inquiry about Madame Apraxina's sudden death. But she was always in weak health. Were you at the opera yesterday? Yes, I was. Luca was very good. Yes, very good, he said, and as it was utterly of no consequence to him what they thought of him, he began repeating what they had heard 100 times about the characteristics of the singer's talent. Countess Bola pretended to be listening. Then, when he had said enough and paused, the colonel, who had been silent till then, began to talk. The colonel too talked of the opera, and about culture. At last, after speaking of the proposed folle journée at Turin's, the colonel laughed, got up noisily, and went away. Levin too rose, but he saw by the face of the countess that it was not yet time for him to go. He must stay 2 minutes longer. He sat down. But as he was thinking all the while how stupid it was, he could not find a subject for conversation, and sat silent. You are not going to the public meeting? They say it will be very interesting, began the countess. No, I promised my Belle-Sœur to fetch her from it, said Levin. A silence followed. The mother once more exchanged glances with the daughter. Well, now I think the time has come, thought Levin, and he got up. The ladies shook hands with him, and begged him to say _mille choses _ to his wife for them.